feel like safety. But this silence was a war cry waiting to detonate. It was after midnight when the storm rolled in, not the one outside, but the one between Janelle and Maurice. Rain tapped on the kitchen window like it had manners, but even that sound felt loud in the stillness between them. The kind of quiet that ain't just about what ain't said, but what's been buried too deep to dig up. Janelle stood barefoot, arms wrapped around her silk robe, staring into the hum of the refrigerator light, not because she was hungry, but because she needed some kind of light to stand in. The rest of the house felt like shadows of a marriage that had overstayed its welcome. Maurice was upstairs, probably still in that same position, half asleep, half scrolling, barely present. His scent used to pull her in like gravity. Now it just lingered in the sheets like regret. She closed the fridge and leaned on the counter, letting out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her wedding ring clinked lightly against her wine glass, half full or half empty, depending on the night. "Is this it?" she whispered to herself. "Is this all it's going to be now?" She wanted to scream. She wanted to be touched, not just in the ways that made her body arc, but in the ways that made her soul exhale. She wanted to feel like Janelle, not just somebody's wife who cooks good grits and keeps the bills paid. Just then, footsteps creaked behind her. But it wasn't Maurice. It was him, his brother. And suddenly, the silence wasn't so quiet anymore. Some footsteps don't echo loud, but they leave cracks in the floorboards of your spirit. Janelle didn't have to turn around to know it was Amir. His presence was a warmth that slid across her back like temptation dressed in skin. He always walked slow, like his body knew how to carry secrets. "You okay?" he asked, voice low and dipped in honey. She turned halfway, just enough to see the glint of him in the moonlight. He wore joggers and a white tee, still damp from his run. Why was he always running from something or to something? His eyes studied her like she was a puzzle he had memorized but never dared to solve. "You ain't fine," she said, but the tremble in her voice told the truth. He leaned against the counter, close enough for her to smell the salt on his skin, the whisper of vanilla from his lotion, that unmistakable scent of man, real man who hadn't lost his hunger for life, not like Maurice who barely looked her in the eye anymore. "You don't gotta keep pretending around me, Jay. I see you." That broke something. Because being seen felt dangerous, but it also felt like salvation. Desire don't need words. It lives in glances held a second too long. They stood there suspended in a moment that tiptoed on the edge of too much. Amir reached for a glass and poured her the rest of the wine without asking. The way he moved in her kitchen, so comfortable, so easy, it stirred something she tried to bury months ago. "I shouldn't be out here," she said, but her body didn't move. "I should go upstairs," he replied, but neither did his. Their eyes locked. Her heartbeat pounded so loud it drowned out the rain. He leaned in slightly, not enough to touch, but enough to make her mouth go dry. "You ever wonder if your life's been on mute for so long you forgot how your voice sound?" She blinked, swallowed hard, because yes, she wondered that every damn day. Sometimes guilt hits harder when you didn't do nothing, but wanted to. Janelle woke before sunrise, body tense, heart still racing from the night before. Nothing had happened, no kiss, no touch, but everything is shifted. She could feel it like smoke in the walls. She moved through the house like she was walking on glass. Maurice was still asleep. He hadn't even noticed her missing. Typical. Downstairs, Amir was gone, like he always did, slipping out before the world woke up. She found a mug on the counter, still warm. He made her coffee. He remembered how she liked it, light, no sugar. Maurice hadn't made her coffee in years. What's dangerous ain't the secrets, it's who notices them before you do. On Sunday dinner, the family gathered like always. Laughter bounced off the walls, chicken crackled in the grease, collards steamed up the windows. But under the laughter, she could feel it, Amir's gaze on her. She didn't look back, but her skin did, her pulse did. "You good?" Maurice asked halfway through the meal, finally looking at her. She nodded too quickly. "Tired, that's all." Amir watched her lie, and that shook her more than anything, because when a man sees you, really sees you, you forget how to disappear. There's a certain way a man says your name when he ain't supposed to want you. Late that night, she went out back for air. The summer breeze carried music from someone's porch radio, some old Luther track about love going sideways. Then she heard him. A Janelle. The way he said it wasn't loud, but it rang through her whole body. She turned. Amir stood by the garden gate, bare-chested, a towel around his neck, glistening from sweat and sin. "You should go," she whispered. "Just say my name like you mean it first." Her throat tightened, but her mouth parted, and when she said Amir, it came out like a prayer wrapped in thunder. Some moments kiss you without lips, and those are the ones you never forget. That night, she didn't sleep. She lay in bed beside Maurice, staring at the ceiling while his soft snore filled the silence. His arm barely touched her. He hadn't kissed her goodnight again, but her skin still tingled. Not from him, but from almost. Almost kissed. Almost lost control. Almost made a choice she couldn't come back from. Her lips were still untouched, but her soul had already leaned in. You can dress it in silence, wrap it in routine, but tension always finds its way through. Monday morning hit hard. Maurice rushed out early, left his plate on the table like she was the maid, not his wife. Janelle cleaned in silence, scrubbing harder than she needed to, trying to wash the ache off her fingertips. Amir came down the stairs slow, hair wet, towel slung low, eyes soft but aware. "You okay?" She didn't answer. Instead, she handed him coffee. Their hands touched, and that touch said more than any argument she and Maurice had had all year. A woman can lie to the world, but not to her own reflection. That afternoon, Janelle caught her own eyes in the mirror, and what she saw made her sit down. This wasn't just flirtation. It wasn't loneliness. It wasn't a phase. This was longing. Deep, unshakable, bone-heavy longing for freedom, for touch, for breath, for Amir. And that scared her more than any affair could ever, because this wasn't a mistake waiting to happen. This was a truth refusing to stay hidden. There's a line you don't cross, but some nights it reaches for you first. She found herself at the kitchen table again, late, robe loose around her hips, candle flickering. Amir walked in like he had a key to her silence. They didn't speak, just breathed. The tension was silk and steel. Her hand rested on the table, his moved close, and when their fingers touched, her breath caught. "Say stop," he murmured, but her lips stayed shut, because sometimes silence is consent. And sometimes it's the cry of a woman begging to be ruined gently. Some touches are accidents. Some are earthquakes pretending to be still hands. Janelle should have moved. She should have stepped back, turned away, something. But instead, she stayed rooted like the tension between them was feeding her bones. Elijah's fingers barely grazed hers as he passed to the glass of wine. But that whisper of contact, it set off something dangerous. She felt it bloom down her spine, heat licking places she thought had gone cold. "You all right?" he asked low, his voice dipped in gravel and something sinful. She nodded, not trusting her mouth. She hated how he saw through her, how he looked at her like she was art left out in the rain, still beautiful, but drenched in sorrow. "You ever feel like you're suffocating, but nobody notices?" she finally asked, eyes on the storm outside. Elijah didn't answer. He just leaned against the counter, close enough to feel, far enough to resist. "Every damn day," he said. Their silence pulsed, not empty, but loud with all the things they shouldn't be thinking. Neglect ain't always loud. Sometimes it just forgets your birthday. Maurice came home later than usual. No excuse, no call, just the usual shrug and a distracted kiss on her cheek. It stung more than if he'd slapped her. "Long day," he said, throwing off his jacket. She murmured. She watched him, the way he didn't even notice her new hair or that she'd been crying. He was there, but not really there. "Want dinner?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Nah, ate at the office." She nodded, clearing the untouched plates she'd carefully set earlier. In that moment, Janelle realized it wasn't the cheating that would break her. It was the forgetting. Temptation don't always wear red lipstick. Sometimes it smells like fresh soil and sounds like your name whispered wrong. It was late afternoon when Janelle found herself in the backyard. Elijah had offered to help fix the broken porch light. But what started a small talk by the garden turned into long stares and words dipped in curiosity. "You always this quiet?" she asked. "You always this restless?" he replied. They were standing too close again, breaths mingling, hearts syncopated. Her hand grazed his while reaching for a tool. It stayed there a second too long, maybe two. He didn't pull away. Neither did she. The sun dipped low, painting shadows across her collarbone. Elijah's gaze traced them like scripture. "You know this ain't right," he muttered. "I know," she said, not moving. And still, they didn't step back. Sometimes the truth only comes out when you don't expect anyone to read it. Janelle started writing a letter that night, not to Elijah, not to Maurice, but to herself. A confession. "I miss being wanted, not just touched, but seen. I miss my own voice, the girl I used to be before the quiet swallowed her." She folded it, sealed it, and hid it inside an old novel tucked away in her closet. She didn't know Elijah would find it days later. And when he read it, he understood her in a way no man ever had. Lies don't always crash in. Sometimes they drip like a leaky faucet, slow and constant until the floor gives way. Maurice came home wearing a cologne she hadn't bought. The scent hit her like deja vu wrapped in betrayal. "You changing up your scent?" she asked casually. He shrugged. "Nah, someone sprayed me on accident." But his eyes didn't meet hers, and his shirt had a smudge of lipstick so faint it could have been anything, except she knew it wasn't hers. That night, she lay beside him, back to back, wide awake. Her hand drifted down to her stomach. Empty. So why did it feel like something inside her had died? Some fires don't start with matches. They start with conversations that go too deep, too fast, too close. It was just a pot of gumbo, just Elijah helping her stir while Marvin Gaye played low in the background. But there was something about the way he stood behind her, one hand guiding hers, the other bracing the counter, close enough that her breath caught. "You cook like you love hard," he said, his voice brushing her neck. She laughed, soft and dangerous. "And you talk like you got a secret." He leaned in. "I do, but it ain't mine to confess." She turned, and for a second, they were one heartbeat away from burning everything down. Truth has a cruel way of dialing in at the worst time. Janelle was folding laundry when Maurice's phone lit up on the counter. "Can't wait to see you again, Daddy. Last night was everything." The message glowed like a slap. She stared at it, jaw clenched, vision blurred. He walked in seconds later, reaching for it. She didn't say a word, didn't scream, just handed it to him and walked away. But inside, something had cracked. And once it broke, it wouldn't seal back the same. Every sin has a rhythm. This one played like a slow song on a stormy night. The rain came heavy, just like her thoughts. Elijah showed up at the door soaked, holding the book with her hidden letter. He said, "I wasn't looking, but I saw you in these words and I couldn't leave it alone." She pulled him inside before the storm swallowed him whole. They stood in the kitchen again, thunder humming in the walls. He cupped her face like she was glass, and then their lips met, slow, breaking, forbidden, but real. And for once, she didn't flinch. Even the sweetest kiss leaves scars when wrapped in guilt. The morning after was quiet. Elijah had slept on the couch. Janelle had cried in the dark. She wasn't a cheater. She wasn't that woman. But last night, she wasn't his wife neither. She sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and shame sitting heavy on her lap. Elijah joined her, not saying a word. Just sat there, offering his silence like a blanket. They both knew the line had been crossed, but neither one of them wanted to go back. A woman don't leave when she's angry. She leaves when she's empty. Janelle packed slowly, not everything, just the pieces of herself she still recognized. She wasn't running to Elijah. She wasn't even running from Maurice. She was walking toward herself. When Maurice came home, she didn't argue, didn't cry, just handed him the letter she wrote months ago. "I've been gone a long time, Mo. I'm just now catching up to where I left myself." And with that, she stepped out into the sun, not free, but finally willing to chase it. Some storms don't roar. Some whisper right before they drown you. Maurice hadn't said a word all morning. The clinking of his spoon against his coffee mug was louder than anything between them. Janelle moved through the kitchen like a stranger in her own home, her silk robe brushing against the hardwood like a ghost. Khalil had left early, didn't even say goodbye, and yet his absence filled every room. Maurice finally cleared his throat. "You good?" That question, so shallow it insulted her depth. Janelle didn't answer. She just picked up her keys and her bag, slid on her heels like armor, and walked toward the door. The echo of those heels across the kitchen floor sounded like a woman walking away from something, even if she hadn't left yet. Even a man full of ego can feel when his crown starts slipping. Maurice watched her go and didn't chase her. That's how far they'd fallen. There was once a time he would have argued, pulled her back, made love to erase the distance, but now he just sat there, sipping lukewarm coffee and marinating in his own guilt. He'd known something was off, the way she touched him like she was trying to remember, the way her smile had edges now, and when she looked at him, it was like she was asking, "Who are you really?" Maurice didn't want to admit what his gut already knew. Janelle had emotionally checked out, and someone, his own brother, had slipped into the space he left cold. Some fires don't burn wild, some simmer, slow, steady, and dangerous. Janelle stepped into her office like it owed her peace, but the truth followed her. Khalil's touch, his breath, the way her name sounded like a psalm when he said it. She shook it off, or tried to. The door creaked open. "Khalil, thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. He stepped in like a man with nothing to lose. "Thought you didn't want to." They stood too close. Breaths mingled. Her eyes scanned the curve of his jaw, the ache beneath his smile. She knew what they couldn't do, but her body remembered what they had already done. You can be held and still feel alone. You can be touched and still not felt. Maurice tried that night. He poured wine, cooked her favorite salmon with lemon butter, even played old school Maxwell in the background. But Janelle moved around the house like an actor in someone else's script. He reached for her hand. She flinched. "You don't love me anymore?" he asked, eyes glassy. Janelle looked at him, really looked. "I do, but it's not the kind of love that saves people anymore." He nodded, silent, wounded. But he knew. Some love expires, and some love had just begun to bloom in the shadows. You can't run from the truth when your body already confessed it. Janelle found herself in her car outside Khalil's place again. Her fingers trembled on the steering wheel. She could still feel the imprint of his fingertips on her thighs like scripture. But it wasn't just desire. It was the way he saw her, the version of herself she thought had died years ago. He opened the door before she knocked. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "But you are." And that was all it took. Two people, aching in all the same places, fell back into each other like gravity. And somewhere between guilt and grace, they made love like it was the only truth left. When passion becomes prayer, you don't ask for forgiveness, you just breathe. The morning light crept in like it knew what they did. Janelle's back was pressed to Khalil's chest, his arm across her waist like he was guarding a treasure. But the ache in her spirit couldn't be ignored. "What are we doing?" she asked softly. Khalil didn't answer. He just kissed her shoulder. Slow, reverent. She got up, dressed in silence, and left him standing there in nothing but sweatpants and confusion. The truth was she loved them both, but in very different ways, and one of them had only ever seen her, not just wanted her. A man can rule the world and still lose his own house. Maurice walked into the barbershop and didn't speak. His boy Darnell noticed. "Yo, Mo, you good?" "Nah, my wife I'm thinking slipping away." Darnell gave him a look only a real brother would give. "Nah, bruh, she ain't slipping. You been watching her fall and didn't catch her." That hit hard. Maurice realized then he hadn't been her anchor. He'd been her weight. And Khalil, he was out here playing savior. And that's when Maurice's rage started to boil. Sometimes you gotta hurt both hearts to save a soul. Janelle sat in her mother's garden, the scent of jasmine in the air, tears in her throat. Mama didn't ask much, just handed her a glass of sweet tea and let her cry. Mama finally said, "You gon' have to choose, baby. This ain't about lust no more. It's about who makes you breathe." Janelle nodded, eyes low. She thought of Maurice's loyalty, the history they built, then Khalil's touch, the future she never imagined but suddenly craved. And in that moment, she realized loving them both meant losing part of herself. The truth don't care if it breaks you. It just wants to be known. Maurice came home early, walked in on Janelle packing a bag. "You leaving me?" he asked, voice low. "No," she said. "I'm leaving who I became with you." The silence between them was brutal. "Is it him?" Her silence screamed yes. Maurice's fist balled up, but he didn't raise them. Instead, he turned away. "You already gone, ain't you?" Janelle touched his shoulder, soft. "I never wanted it to end like this." He didn't look back, "But you wanted it to end." When the storm clears, you see who's still standing and who's still worth it. Janelle moved into her own place, small, quiet, hers. Khalil came by, nervous. "I don't want to be your escape. I want to be your choice." She smiled, tired but clear-eyed. "Then give me time. Let me be whole first." He kissed her forehead. Maurice, meanwhile, sat in his empty kitchen, staring at the cup she used to drink tea from. Regret heavy on his shoulders, but also clarity. The storm had passed. Now came the rebuilding. And not all storms destroy. Some wash you clean.
Thank you for watching. Please let us know where you are watching from, so we can say thanks. Please don't forget to subscribe.